Hi guys, Happy New Year! In today's video, we will review the Asia technology job market / hiring trend in 2020, as well as what we expect to see in 2021. Hopefully this information will be useful to you as you prepare for your new move, or more importantly, as you plan and direct your career in order to stay relevant to the ever-changing technology scene. Needless to say, 2020 was one heck of a year for all the wrong reasons. And I wish I can say that it is all behind us now that we're in the new year, but we all know that that is simply not the case, unfortunately. But there are definitely some promising signs as well, such as the vaccine, and let's continue to hope that we will keep making progress as we combat this situation. With that in mind, I would like to share with you some market intelligence on 2020, as well as what we can potentially expect in 2021, with the hope that it'll provide some useful information and guidelines as you prepare for your next move. Also, before we begin, I would like to reiterate that today's content is primarily about the technology market in Asia, specifically Hong Kong and Singapore, and to some degree, Beijing, Shanghai, and Tokyo. Of course, the trend in this video may very well be applicable to other regions as well, but again, our content is based on the data from the locations that I mentioned. Now, let's start with a general observation. When 2020 first began and the COVID situation was just starting to be serious in Asia, especially Hong Kong, it seemed as if the job market was going to be completely dried up and everyone was expecting the worst. However, to our pleasant surprise, we quickly realized that this was simply not the case, and there was a much stronger demand for technology professionals than we initially thought. And there are mainly two reasons for this. The first reason was that due to the coronavirus, significantly more businesses and companies had to go online and digital in terms of their product offering. As a result, pretty much every industry, whether it be banking, insurance, retail, startups, tech firms, investment banks, and etc., they all chose to invest heavily in technology, even if they were cutting down in other areas. So ultimately, this pandemic ended up exponentially increasing the dependency on IT for pretty much all businesses that could afford to go online. The second reason was that, as you know, most companies were forced to implement work from home. And so they had no choice but to absolutely depend on IT to facilitate this transition while balancing the need for productivity as well as more robust security. Also, one notable hiring pattern that we observed in the beginning of the year was that most companies were exclusively hiring on a contract basis due to the uncertainty of the situation. But even this changed quite quickly in the second half of the year, and permanent roles became the norm and remained consistently strong until December, when traditionally hiring comes to a full stop. Now, enough of the general observation. Next, let's look at the specific types of roles that were in demand in 2020. Now, here is an overview of the type of roles that we worked on in 2019 versus 2020. You can see that in 2020, development roles made up of about 25%, which was the largest, followed by BAPM of around 20%, infrastructure about 18%, security, and etc. Compare this to 2019, and we can see that the role distribution pattern was largely the same, with dev roles being the most common, followed by BAPM, infra, and security. If we look into each type of roles further, however, there are many more interesting insights. Here is the comparison for development opportunities. You can see that Java leads the pack by a large margin. At least in Asia, Java still remains to be the most popular language by far. We expect this pattern to continue in the foreseeable future. As for languages that grew in demand in 2020, they are C++ and Python. The reason why C++ roles grew in number is primarily due to high-frequency trading firms expanding here. High-frequency trading firms have generally been performing well in the last 2 years, and they did extremely well in 2020 due to increased volatility of the stock market, and most of them use C++ for true performance boost. For Python, this is due to the increasing popularity of the language in general. This has been a global trend, and Hong Kong is catching up. We are seeing more companies adopting Python not just for scripting or small tools, but as the main development language choice for large-scale mission-critical systems. And we believe this growth will carry on, and we will see more traditional languages being replaced by Python. You may have noticed that C# has gone down in demand. This is in line with the trend that we have seen for the past 3 to 5 years. The biggest reason is this. C# was traditionally the choice of technology for GUI development with WinForm and WPF and etc. in the past. However, these days, most companies have already moved on to web and JavaScript-based UIs, and this is the reason why we see more companies looking for full-stack developers. Thus, the need for C# has become much less compared to before, except for organizations that use C# as their main server-side language instead of just for UIs. This has also resulted in JavaScript technologies such as React or AngularJS to grow, and we expect this pattern to continue in 2021. Now let's look at infrastructure. It is not a surprise that the demand for cloud grew, whereas the number of traditional server positions dropped in 2020. Cloud is not only here to stay, but it is going to basically take over. If you want to stay relevant within the infrastructure field in the future, you have to know cloud. The demand for traditional network grew tremendously this year, and this is probably due to the heavier dependence on cloud instead of on-premise infra, as well as the higher network capability that is needed for work-from-home arrangements. One surprising trend that we observed was an increase of demand for traditional data center professionals. This was most likely due to 2 reasons. One was the change of China regulations for foreign entities that now enable foreign firms to wholly own companies in China, wholly own joint ventures in China, which encouraged global firms to consolidate their existing infrastructure setup in the mainland. Another reason is companies looking to migrate to cloud and thus reducing and or consolidating their existing on-premise data centers, hence more projects that are related to data center. The next area I'd like to look at further is data. As you can see, there was a significant growth in data analytics, data science, and etc. It's clear that the decision-making process for virtually every industry is shifting towards the data-driven model. And thus, the dependence on data and data analytics is only going to grow. Now, compare this with traditional DBA roles. The need for traditional relational database technologies running on-premise is simply not what it used to be anymore. With an increasing number of companies moving on to more modern data technologies such as big data, with an advancement of cloud-based data management and analytics tools, the demand for traditional DBA skills is expected to remain low in the foreseeable future. Now, to summarize, here is our projection for 2021. We expect Java to remain as the most popular language in 2021, with a continued growth for Python. Data analytics and modern data technologies compared to traditional database will continue to surge. Cloud is here to dominate, and consequently, on-prem servers and data centers will continue to dwindle. Thus, for professionals in database or traditional infrastructure space, it would be highly advantageous to start shifting to modern technologies such as cloud, big data,
data analytics, and etc. as quickly as possible. If you cannot use them in your current firm, pursuing certification or even working on your own projects could be potentially highly useful. Another area that we expect will grow is DevOps and SRE, which is in a way a natural consequence of the growth in cloud development. We are still in the early stage in terms of DevOps and SRE adoption in Asia, but definitely more and more companies are beginning to understand them better and are implementing them. Thus, we expect, again, DevOps and SRE roles to continue to rise. Microservices architecture, especially in relation to cloud, is becoming the new norm. Location-wise, Hong Kong and Singapore are expected to continue to be strong. Having said that, we are observing several of our global clients, especially US firms, who were traditionally based in Hong Kong, are now looking to significantly grow their presence in Singapore in order to be based in multiple jurisdictions. At the same time, as the Chinese regulations begin to loosen up, we expect hiring in China by foreign firms to increase too.
2020 was a year that most of us would just love to forget. But whether we like it or not, it has profoundly changed the way we live our lives in so many ways, and these changes will most likely stick around for a while. At the same time, there will be new opportunities that are created because of these changes, and those of us who are ready will be able to seize them. As we close, I wish everyone who is planning a job search in 2021 all the very best. And I hope that this video has provided a useful insight that will be of value in some way to you. Wishing you an amazing year of hope, health, and progress, and see you again soon.